Timurandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Miditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So we're going to, just as an introduction, this is I found one of the most significant parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada spoke on all of these verses from 126 through 1 to 21. And they give like a complete lesson in Krishna consciousness. And in fact, we made it into a book. There's a book called Dharma, The Way of Transcendence. I don't know if you have seen that in Canada. I know it's been printed in India, but Anand, you can look into that and see if that's available, and the devotees can look at that. We took sections just like the teachings of Queen Kunti and the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. We took, of course, the original verses and the translations and purports, and then we appended excerpts from Prabhupada's lectures on each one, and it makes a very effective presentation. So, okay, how do I get rid of this? There's a little window that says, please remove. Okay, let me see. Oh, okay, let's see. Move this window. Can you see that window there, Anand?
Yes, Prabhu, we also can see that.
How can we get that out of the way? Because that's going to block some things. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It says, please move it away. Oh, there we go. Nice. Whoops. Yeah. Let's come back now. All right, we'll deal with it. So just as an introduction, this is beginning 126. So it's explained that there's a series of questions by the sages at Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami. And this section, beginning with this verse 126, answers a question posed in the first chapter in text 11. And it goes like, Buddhini buddhi karmani shotavyani vibhagasha atak sadho tayat sadam samudritya manishaya buhi badraya bhutanam yenatma supersediti. Those words yenatma supersediti practically repeated here, syllable by syllable in the first verse. And the translation to this verse is, this is the sages addressing Sutta. There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them there are many prescribed duties, which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied. Yenatma supersediti. So Sutta Goswami praises the question in the previous verse 125, that this is Muniyaksara Prishtoham Bhavadbhya Loka Mangalam. This question and its answer are auspicious for everybody, both the speaker and the listeners and those who come later like us. And so then he begins to answer the question. So we'll chant this verse, and I'm going to just leave a space there where you're all muted, but please try to just repeat the verse. You have it there on the screen. Savai Pongsang Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Radhokshaje Ahaitukya Pradiyata Yatma Supersediti. Okay. Can you hear me now? I hope. The supreme occupation of Dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So I've taken an excerpt from the, from the purport, and we'll read that and explain it. We have purposely denoted Dharma as occupation because the root meaning of the word Dharma is that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all-attractive living entity or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and is completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. So these purports are very rich. The mood of the first canto is a little different from subsequent cantos, especially beginning with the third canto, because Prabhupada wrote the second canto also in India. But Prabhupada is every purport practically here, he's bringing it back to the complete conclusion of Krishna consciousness. So you can see that if you just read this one purport, you could be inspired to take up Krishna consciousness. So first of all, in the larger purport, this is beginning with the second paragraph. Prabhupada talks about the Vritti Marga and Pravritti Marga, the path of engagement in the material world and renunciation of the material world. Both of those are within the Vedic culture. There's a Pravritti Marga, the Karma Kanda section, how you can perform sacrifices and lead a pious life, and for getting a better birth, even a birth in heaven in the next life. But this keeps one entangled within the material world, as we learn very distinctly from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, where he talks about worshiping him with material desires and drinking the soma rasa and going to heaven, and then enjoying like anything, but then using up one's pious credits and coming back again, and so you really don't progress anywhere. So Krishna consciousness is based on Anyabhilasha Darshunyam, the absence of any tinge of material desire, even up to the point of mukti. That's also ultimately material. And simply aiming toward regaining our original Dharma, and this is where Dharma comes in, that which sustains one's existence, that which is our essential nature, and it is to be completely selfless, loving servants of the Lord. And that's why in this verse, I'll go up again, we find these words, ahaituki apratiyata. Ahaituki means unmotivated, means not motivated by any material desire, the motivation being only to please Krishna. That's called ahaituki. And uninterrupted. In other words, it ultimately comes to pervade our entire life 24 hours a day. Prabhupada would sometimes use that phrase. So that's the goal. And to get from where we are now to there's the Dharma of sadhana bhakti and vaidhi bhakti and all of the things that we do to purify our hearts so that we come back to that original state of pure devotional service. So this is the relation of servant and served. So that this is the answer to the question, and he will expand on it. Now, as we go through in the next few verses, you'll see that he's speaking about dharma, artha, and kama, and moksha. As many of you well know, these are the famous 4 purusharthas of Vedic culture. You probably call it religiosity. In this context, dharma is sanatana dharma, but it's dharma in order to attain wealth, in order to enjoy material happiness, kama. And when one is fully disgusted with that and realizes that you're just going round and around and birth, death, old age, and disease, you want mukti, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So these subjects are directly mentioned in the subsequent verses, and how each of them fits into the eternal dharma, that is to awaken the love for Adhokshaja. Now back to the verse, this word Adhokshaja Prabhupada expands upon in that book that I mentioned in his lecture. Adhokshaja has three parts: Adha, Aksha, and Ja. Ja is short for birth or generating. So Aksha is eyes, and it symbolizes all the senses. So that knowledge, which is born or results from the ascending process, using our senses and our mind to observe and to speculate, and in other words, the process of material science, as it were. That knowledge cannot take us to Krishna. Adhokshaja literally means transcendent, transcendental, which is beyond the range of the material mind and senses. So this name is especially used when you're beginning devotional service, because you can't really see directly Krishna's spiritual form. So there requires some faith in the process that will purify the senses so that we can come to see the Lord and come to directly perceive him. Now, Krishna also reaches out through the means of the spiritual master, so we can hear and develop that faith, and also through the name, which we can hear and chant, and of course the deities and every way in which he manifests. So even in our materially conditioned state, we can see the Lord and serve him. But Adhokshaja is a very important concept, that he's transcendent, and we need to have a process by which we can purify our senses and minds so we can eventually come to directly perceive. And this process, only if it's ahoitaki and apratayata, it's devotional service to the transcendent Lord, and is not motivated by anything material, and is constant, will that really satisfy the soul completely. So just to wrap up this first verse, that we are part and parcel of the Lord. Prabhupada famously gave the example of the senses such as the hands serving the body, and a hand that can't serve the body, if it's paralyzed, then it's a problem for us. And we're not the hand is not in its Dharma condition. It's not performing the function of the hand. So it's a hand in the name only. So we're in that position now of the paralyzed hand. We're still part and parcel of Krishna, but we're not performing the right function of a part and parcel. We're not serving the whole. We're trying to be separated from Krishna. And that's the root cause of our suffering in this world. And whatever pleasures we have simply keep us more entangled. They're flickering and reflections of real pleasure. So getting back to that original state is what real Dharma is all about. And I'd like to insert one thing here, just to, before we leave this first verse. And that is, this comes up in the, at the end. Oh, it's all right. Hold on. Oh, yes. So at the end of chapter 3 of Canto 6, Yamaraj is speaking. This is the pastime of a Jamil. And of course, emphasizing the importance of the holy name. And when Yamaraj speaks to his Yamadutas, who are puzzled why they couldn't arrest the Jamil, he has three verses at the end of this chapter of instructions, which are very much pertinent to what we're discussing. There's three questions. Where does Dharma come from? How is Dharma maintained in this material world? And what's the essence of the Dharma? So I'm just going to read these three here. I'll give the essence of it. There's this one line from text 19, 6.3.19. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Prabhupada would always quote this line, that actual Dharma is that which is enunciated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is directly enunciated. And it's a mystery what that is. Not everyone can know it. So then he lists the 12 Mahajans, beginning with Lord Brahma and going through Prahlad, Janaka, Bali, so forth, the Kumars, and then himself also Yamaraj. And those who know this Dharma, these 12 know this Dharma, it's called Bhagavat Dharma, very confidential, very pure, difficult to understand, but one who does understand it will taste real nectar. And then he gives a verse which is practically, you can see it's a foundational verse for the Hare Krishna movement. Lord Chaitanya came to fulfill these teachings of the Bhagavatam. Etavana velokesmin pungsang dharma paraksmataha bhakti yoga bhagavati tannama guhanari bi. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. So this definitely fits in with our theme of the verses in the first canto. That's 6.3.22, if you want to refer to it later. So this is the opening verse here, that real Dharma is that which engenders or results in pure devotional service to Adhokshaja or Krishna. And then he describes the effect of that Dharma, the immediate effect. I'll say, you say, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yanahayutukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. From the purport, the principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, and the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. So there's a famous verse that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wrote about Lord Chaitanya and his teachings. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shiksha Tameka Purushak Purana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripam Buddhiyas Tamaham Papadye. That same ancient person, Krishna, has now appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach devotion to himself, characterized by Vairagya Vidya, detachment and knowledge. He is an ocean of mercy, and I take full shelter of him. So these principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors in the path of transcendental realization. So why is that? Because the source of our suffering is the root source is ignorance. When we turn away from Krishna, this described in the 11th canto, Bhayam Dvitiya Benavesha Daksyad, and we become absorbed in the dualities of this material world, thinking that they're separate from the Lord, we completely forget Krishna. Then our position becomes reversed. Instead of being servants of God, we become competitors to God, and we forget everything. So, and we go from one species to another, one state to another, and simply trying to enjoy varieties of the material world. So, what we need is knowledge of our situation. If we want to get relief from the suffering that comes with this state, then we need knowledge, first of all. And we need a process of yoga by which we become detached from our addictions or conditionings and of attachment to the different attachments to this material world. So that's the process of Bhakti Yoga is taught, and so many examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the books that follow it. So that process it comes immediately. As soon as we begin devotional service sincerely, we can feel ourselves that the grip of our addictions to this world and our attachments is lessening. To the extent that we're becoming absorbed, especially in chanting the holy name, serving Krishna, and sincerely, then the blazing fire of various attachments that keeps us bound here is banking, is going down. So this is a very important factor, because without that development of knowledge and detachment, our experience in devotional service is very flickering and it's not steady. And so that's why we need good instruction. And the Super Soul has been trying to instruct us in time immemorial, and we haven't listened to him. So Krishna, out of his great mercy, he appears externally as the spiritual master and as the Shastra. I should say spiritual masters. They include so many instructing spiritual masters also, as well as our initiating spiritual master, to give us good instruction and provide us this link. And this is why the relationship with the Guru is so important, because by surrender, then we can become determined, our determination to follow the practices and really attain some footing in devotional service takes place. So this verse is very significant. Bhakti Jani Ashu, the word Ashu means quickly. If we really determined and we're serious, then quickly we can feel that vairagya, that dispassion, that detachment developing. And by chanting and by, of course, studying the books Srila Prabhupada has given us, the knowledge will quickly develop so that we have a firm footing on the path of devotional service. Okay, going on. Another famous verse. All of them are famous, actually, every one of them. Dharmak svanushtita pungsam vishrakse nakatasuyaha notpariye jadiratim shamahe vahikevalam. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Okay, now I really can't see it. Oh boy. Okay. The question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and the mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. Now, this next few sentences are some of the most poetic in the whole Bhagavatam. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in the occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational duties, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. So now, with this verse, he sets the foundation for the development of the rest of this section, which we're going to study, culminating in the highly purifying process of hearing and chanting, in which Krishna is cleansing our heart and bringing us to the perfectional stage. So here he started, Suanustitak means two things. It could be Svanustitak, means one's own position in Varnashram Dharma, because he's talking about Varnashram. Or it can mean nicely performed. This word Svanustita, Suanustita, comes up in the Bhagavad Gita as well. One better to perform one's own activities faultily than on others nicely. We may perform our duties in the Varnashram very nicely, whatever duties we have. But if it does not engender or produce attraction for hearing the glorification of the Lord, it's a complete waste of time. In other words, the Lord has manifested, Krishna has manifested to us in this age especially, most obviously through the sound vibration, beginning with the holy name, but all of these wonderful books such as Srimad Bhagavatam. So we need to get attraction for hearing them. Enough attraction so that we'll have a regular program of hearing and chanting. And contacting Krishna through the sound vibration is how the purification process can take place most effectively and most quickly. So here, the Srimad Bhagavatam is pointing out all these cheating religions that they kicked out in the second verse. The very second verse of the Bhagavatam, 112, talks about Dharma. Dharma, projitakaita voltra. Here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, all these cheating religions are kicked out. Even the cheating religion in the Vedic culture, the one that simply tries to get you to heaven, all these sacrifices, worshiping this god, that god. And if it's not developing your attraction for hearing about Krishna, Vishwaksena, and simply hearing about Nandana gardens in Indraloka, then it is simply a waste of time. And it doesn't get you any closer to getting out of this world. And if you stay in this world, you run the risk of eventually committing grievous sin, losing the human form of life, going down to the species. And this is the risk. That's why the Bhagavatam is wholly and solely about Krishna and his incarnations and his devotees and the process of understanding him, the devotional service. This comes up in the 5th chapter of the 1st canon. Many of you are familiar. Narada Muni is preaching to Vyasadeva, which inspired him to write the Srimad Bhagavatam, his final work. So now the Prabhupada is analyzing here the difference between the soul and the body. If our consciousness is simply absorbed in the bodily senses and in so many different ideas that ultimately are rooted in material life, we completely lose our awareness that we're spirit, that we're part of the Supreme Spirit. Those questions don't even come up. So, and Prabhupada makes it, this famous cage, bird in the cage analogy. If you're simply absorbed in, cleaning or polishing the cage and the poor bird is dying of starvation, that bird in the cage is the soul. So that we've been giving over our consciousness and our power of eternity, so to speak, to the external body, mind, and senses for uncounted births now. So now we have to know what the needs of the soul actually are. And our Prabhupada so poetically mentioned it here, is that we want to fulfill our desire for complete freedom. Our range of activity, our ability to enjoy is so much circumscribed in our material life, even in the human form, what to speak in lower forms. How can we have the complete freedom? Only by, if you will, surrendering unto the Supreme Lord, who is completely free, is beyond any kind of limitation, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that freedom comes from giving up our false sense of freedom, which is really bondage of independence from the Lord, and recognizing our total dependence on him and learning how to serve him at every moment. And that way our vision becomes enlightened. That enlightenment, we can begin to see differently through the eyes of Shastra and see the free light in the spirit. And will be completed when we actually go back to God and we see Krishna face to face. So that dormant affection for Krishna has to be awakened, and the only way, especially in this age, is through hearing and chanting the holy name, qualities, pastimes, and form of the Lord. We have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. And so what helps us achieve that attachment? This whole process, the chanting of Hare Krishna, and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, engaging in the service of the Lord. Then, if we have a day, say, I know many of you are householders, you have to do other things, but if there's a festival or just your regular sadhana, and then you become more eager to hear about Krishna, it becomes so much nectar. Krishna is awarding us that attraction for hearing him when we attempt to hear and chant and serve him and about him and serve him. So that is very important. And the next one is about liberation. So an artha. So we have Dharma, now artha. What is Dharma really meant for? Dharmasya yapa vargasya narto tayo pakalpate nartasya dharma kantasya kama labha yahismataha. So now he's dealing with Dharma, artha, and kama all in one verse. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So this is directly counter to the normal Dharma, Artha, Kama, moksha. From the purport. We have already discussed that pure devotional service to the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from the material existence. But there are others who consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain, dharma, artha. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only, nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described in the following verse. So here it's directly challenging this usual thing of dharma, artha, kama, you know? And nowadays you have something called prosperity theology, in which it said that, oh, you know, if you're very wealthy, that must mean you're being favored by God. He's giving you so much wealth. Whereas if you're poor, that means that you're not being favored by God. Then we have our idea of karma, how that's also, you know, but that's not being favored by God. That's just the way the material world works. And as soon as you try to take credit for being very religious because you're rich, then you become a demon. That's a demonic mentality. You know, that to try to exploit the poor because, oh, they're sinful because they're poor. It's completely distorted. So Dharma is not meant for artha. Dharma is meant for awakening our original love for Krishna. That was the first verse. And any artha that does come, Dharma is meant for liberation. Liberation means ultimately in Krishna consciousness, not for artha and kama. So and if money does come, then it should be used for Krishna. That's the whole idea, knowing well to whom it belongs. So now he says, what is kama meant for? Kama sinendriya priti labho jiveta yavata jivasya tapta jigyasa nato yasche karma bihi. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since the human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Now notice that before we read the excerpt from the purport, Tattva Jigyasa, that's directly an echo from the Vedanta Sutra. This Srimad Bhagavatam is known to be the actual best commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author. So you'll see those echoes in the right at the first syllables of the whole Bhagavatam. Janmad yasya yataha, is that this Bhagavatam is describing the absolute supreme Brahman, which one should be curious about, Tattva Jigyasa, and which is that from which everything is born and which sustains it and destroys ultimately. So, purport, from the purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained in the following verse. So notice we have echoes here from Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, the 5th chapter. What will become more happy because we'll be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. Well, what does Krishna say? He sangsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. That the very gratification of the senses that you experience, that's the source of your misery. We don't realize that, but it just gets us deeper and deeper entangled in the meshes of the material world, where you have these threefold miseries: birth, old age, disease, and death. So this is directly related to, as I mentioned, the Vedanta Sutra. And Prabhupada's purport here is like that we are meant as human beings to search after the absolute truth. The tato brahma jigyasa. Here we have the phrase jiva sitapta jigyasa. It's the same idea. And that searching for the absolute truth is accompanied by progressive transcendental pleasure in everything having to do with that absolute truth, because the absolute truth is ultimately the most attractive person in Krishna, with full 6 opulences, including beauty and knowledge and power and everything else. So that should be how our desires should be directed, not toward gratifying the senses, which Rishabhdev says and is everywhere in our books, is simply mad. Nunam pramata kurate vikarma yadindriya priti aparnat. Indriya priti is mentioned here. That one is dedicated to that is simply mad, because it's sure to ensure another birth, which ensures suffering. And if one is totally involved in sense gratification, he's sure to perform very great sins, which chances to lose the human form of life, which is a great tragedy. That's the greatest fearful danger. So the process of devotional service teaches us how to direct our desires toward Krishna and to live as simply as possible. And it's such a freedom not to be worrying, so much about your material comforts and your material pleasures, but to take simple pleasures, chanting the holy name, serving, preaching, seeing the deity, and these festivals and everything we have in Krishna consciousness. It's a wonderful lifestyle, and it's wholesome, and it brings us closer to Krishna, and it's very pleasurable. So this is the great gift Srila Prabhupada has given us, the full culture of Krishna consciousness, which provides so much activity for the senses and so much activities for the mind, but all of it increases our desire to hear and chant about Krishna. And I think I have one more that I picked out for part 1, and that is this absolute truth. What does it consist of? Vadanti tat tat vividas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun rays are to the sun god. And that's the end of part 1. And so just to wrap up, because we want to share we need some questions and discussion and also some poetry. So I highly encourage you to read this at your leisure between now and our next session, this section beginning 1, 2, 6. And you'll find it's going through text 21, it's a complete lesson. And so much of the structure of the Krishna consciousness movement, the philosophy, is present there. Practically speaking, it's a complete lesson. I've often thought that the Srimad Bhagavatam, which of course is urgently heard by the sages of Naimisharanya with the imminent advent of Kali Yuga. They're concerned that the people of this age won't live very long. They'll be lazy in the matter of spiritual life. It's not a good age. We need the essence of all the scriptures. So please give it to us so that they'll have a chance to progress. That knowing that even the Bhagavatam is not so easy to read through. That even the 2nd chapter, they've given a whole complete lesson. If you simply understand these verses 126 to 1221, you can go back to Godhead. You'll see as we progress in this. I'm thinking we may need 3 sessions to go through this. It's so rich, but we'll decide. I'll discuss it with Ananda Gauranga Prabhu. So that concludes our part 1. If there's some discussion, we can entertain it, and then I have a few offerings of poetry to present.
Wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So, and then as devotees know, Prabhu spent over 45 years in ISKCON, swimming within the vast ocean of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, etc. And he's put in, written so many wonderful poems. And whenever he comes to Toronto, he does recite that, and we have programs. So the last 10 minutes or so today, we will have Prabhu recite many of those wonderful poems, as well as Prabhu has sent some of these to the devotees as well, and I forwarded it along to many of you. So we will continue to do that as and when Prabhu sends it over. I will pass it along to you, so you can get in touch with me if you need anything that Prabhu has created. So Prabhu, before we get into that, maybe we can spend a few minutes on some of the questions. So Prabhu, this 1.2.6, the supreme occupation for all humanity is by which men can attain the loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. So in this particular verse, the word Dharma is there. So is there a similarity or difference with Bhagavad Gita 18.66? Sarvadharman Parityaja, where it says abandon all varieties.
Sarvadharma Parityaja?
Yes.
Yeah, well, what it's interesting you asked that. The Dharma is it's used in different ways in different contexts, like many different words. In the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada talks about the Sanatan Dharma. The Sanatan Dharma, our eternal function, which is serve Krishna and be situated in our original position in the spiritual world eternally. That's where we want to get back to. But in many ways, the Dharma indicates a process, something that you undertake in order to reach another state. And even the Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, you're being religious, you're praying to God, you're doing things, but the goal is to be prosperous in this world. So it may not, it doesn't necessarily have chanting of Hare Krishna. There are so many other things, as you may well know, in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. So the Dharma that Krishna is speaking of is Sarva Dharma Parityaja. He's saying there, okay, we went through Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, we went through Dhyana Yoga. These are all kinds of dharmas in order to bring you to a certain state. Forget about it all. He says, now I'm giving you the essence, right? He's saying the most confidential of confidential, which he just spoke in the previous verse. Man mana bhavaman bhakto manjaji mam namaskaru. Mame vashasi satyante pradijane priyoside. So what he's saying there is that this is all you really need to do. You surrender to me, you think of me, become my devotee, right? There's so many functions there. Bow down to me, worship me. Then you'll certainly come to me. Then you don't need any more dharmas. You don't usually think of like the gopis performing different dharmas, right? They're just, thinking of Krishna, singing of Krishna, going to meet Krishna, enjoying in that way. They've already reached it. They're already in the perfectional stage. So it's a way different words are used in different contexts. Here the word is used as to yato bhakti hokside. It's a process by which bhakti to the transcendent Lord Krishna is evoked. And in order for it to completely satisfy the self, it has to be free of material motivation and uninterrupted. That means that there's Dharma that's not free of material motivation, and it is interrupted. And that Dharma is materially motivated. So in this sense, this is why, if you're speaking of the supreme Dharma, then there's other Dharmas that aren't supreme. So that's the context. There's a process of do's and don'ts that are meant to take you to a different place or develop a certain consciousness.
Wonderful, Prabhu.
That's why I understand that.
That answers the question perfectly, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So another question that came through is in the last purport that you showed, Prabhu. It goes like the absolute truth is both the subject and the object. So
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to explain it, but we kind of ran out of time. This comes up. You have this idea of Krishna as the Vishaya and Radharani as the Ashraya. And sometimes it's used as subject and object. Krishna is the object of everybody's devotion. He's the ultimate enjoyer of our love. The Ashraya, the shelter of the love, is a subject in this the subject and object. Prabhupada uses those terms. So, but think about it. Krishna is both the subject and object. He's the object of love, but at the same time, he is a person. he also has his reciprocation with us. He's also feeling affection and attraction for his devotees. So there's no qualitative difference there, meaning that these different aspects of Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan are qualitatively one, because they're different aspects of the same substance, the same person. It's like if if I have you go back to the analogy where Prabhupada talks about the Prime Minister of England, that when he's playing with his nephew or his grandchild or something, he's in a certain aspect. But when he's in his official capacity, he has a different relationship, a different aspect. So this Brahman is just, and Paramatma, they're just partial representations of Krishna, his expanded energy or his expansion in everyone's heart, like that. So they're all the same. So in a very important sense, this is how we as part and parcels also have the quality of Krishna. Now you see what I'm saying? So Krishna is the reservoir of all, or the object of affection for all his devotees. But he himself is also a subject, in that he is the source of all of this love and all of this energies that we reflect upon him. So it's really a different way of saying Achinchya Bheda Bheda Tattva. It's inconceivable how we can be one with yet different from. And one note on this also is that in bhakti we often emphasize the difference, because there has to be that difference in order to be the bhakta and the bhakti and the Bhagavan, the difference. But we shouldn't forget the oneness. And I like to think of it this way, because so much of our mentality is trying to withdraw it from this self-centered sense gratification motivation. And that is completely dependent on our sense of separateness from the Lord, and we forget all about him. And so when it comes time to think, well, this is how you can really enjoy, is by serving Krishna 24 hours a day. But immediately you say, well, how am I going to enjoy like that? This is where the non-difference comes in. Krishna is Anandamaya Vyasat. He's always full of bliss. And we belong to that. In other words, if we are participating in his service and giving him happiness, then we're also giving ourselves happiness, and it's wholesome. It doesn't have to end. It's part and parcel of the ananda. It's not the sense gratification. So understanding our oneness is also important, as well as maintaining, of course, that sense of I'm the servant of the Lord and he is infinite, I'm finite. So that balancing those two and understanding that's real, and that's what's qualitatively one and the same. And there's no qualitative difference, although there is the difference. So it's it's inconceivable. So it's not easy to understand, but that is our ultimate philosophy. Achinchya Bheda Bheda Tattva. All right, that's much I can take on that one.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So now we can hear some of your
A
poems.
few of the poems?
Yes,
okay.
Prabhu.
I prepared a selection here. Okay, so this is the Srila Prabhupada Kripashtaka. Maybe I can... Okay. It says 150, but it hasn't changed it on it. All right, let me see. This is not easy. Okay, we'll start here. So I offered this originally in 2001. I was in India and for Prabhupada's disappearance day, and I wrote most of it there that time in November of 2001. And it's based on the Gurvashtaka, the samsara prayers that we sing every morning, but it's specifically geared toward Prabhupada's pastimes. So let's see if I can call this up. Let's see if this... Can you hear that all right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Tell me if it's too loud. I can turn it down. Is it okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Trapped within samsara's all-consuming blazing fire, We had no hope of rescue till your Guru's strong desire inspired and empowered you to boldly cross the sea and teach the truths of bhakti so some souls would be set free. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. And patiently you taught us how to chant the holy name, and how to dance, and how to sing, and what was life's true aim. And thus you gave us Lord Chaitanya's teachings unalloyed, and saved us from the all-devouring Mayavadi void. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. When Krishna Bhakti spread and you had centers here and there, you introduced the worship of the Deity so fair, and soon throughout the world their lordship smiled upon your crew, and nourished strong devotion to themselves and unto you. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. The books you, Prasadam was your special weapon, no one could resist. Once the Sunday feast had started, no one could desist. Halva, sweet rice, crisper chorus, sabjis, puris, rice. With these and other preps you did our tongues and hearts and ties. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. Okay. The books you showered down upon the masses and on us, toward scripture's sacred essence, bhakti pure and nectarous. And while you, okay,
Number 6.
and while you did what? Okay. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. While managing your ISKCON with the whole world as your stage, meeting, preaching, traveling like a man of half your age, you served your most beloved Radha Krishna in your heart, arranging for their pastimes in Vrindavan's secret part. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. The Guru is as good as God, you said, and some were shocked. But you had simply quoted scripture, you did not concoct. And sure enough, for those who worship you as they would God, the path of bhakti opens wide and joyfully is trod. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. If you bestow your mercy, then Sri Krishna gives his too. But if your mercy is lacking, then there's nothing we can do. So every day we should reflect upon your life sublime, and vow to serve you always with our body, words, and mind. Oh Prabhupada, your mercy is my only treasure now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. I pray that my small hymn, though lacking literary worth, presented to remind us of your pastimes on this earth, may find some favor both with you and with your devotees, who hover around your lovely lotus feet like maddened bees. Oh Prabhupada, I pray that you bestow your mercy now. Unto your soothing lotus feet I bow. Okay, that's one.
Beautiful, Prabhu.
All right, sorry about that one verse. It's being blocked here by this. You are screen sharing. Okay, I don't think I can move that. Oh yes, I can. All right, that's my solution to that problem next time. Okay, so we have time for any more? One more?
Yeah, we'll have definitely, Prabhu. We'll always have time, whatever you have for this week. And of course, we are going to continue next week. And as you said, if need be, we will have a third
Oh,
week
if you
next
want,
week.
yeah, we can do it next weekend, sure. All right, so let's see. We can do this one. All right, let's see. How do I minimize this? Is there a way of getting this? Okay, that'll do it. Okay. All right, this is one of my favorites. This is, oops, Kunja Biharashtika. This is the first Kunja Biharashtika in the Stavamala by Rupa Goswami. And the meter here is identical to that in the Yugal Gita, chapter 35 of the 10th canto. The gopis are singing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. Okay. And there's a Palashruti here, so if one listens to this carefully, he can get very great benefits. Indu Nila Mani Mandalavana, Pullani Pukasamanchitakana, Krishna Labada Kishora Sihari Sundaro, Jayat Kunda Bihari. His smooth complexion conquers sapphire, stunning to the eye. Kadamba blooms with fragrance full on each ear gently lie. His beauty's great, and by his chest Ugunja necklace stays. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Radhika Vadana Chanda Chakora, Sava Ballava Madhuda Tichora, Chachari Chaturtancha Chari Charato, Jayati Kundi Bihari. Chakora longing for the moon of Radha's radiant face, a thief purloining patience from the coward's wives apace. His expert rhythmic clapping winning all the gopis' praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Sarvatak Patil Kaula Kapava, Wangsanena with the Basa Bhagava, Koshta Rakshanakati Gidid Hari Lilya, Jayati Kundi Bihari. When Indra's sacrifice he stopped, he stole on Deva's pride by playfully uplifting and getting Govardhan to hide his friends and cows beneath the hill for 7 nights and days. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Ragamandala Vimbushita Vamshi Vimramena Madano Sabashamsi Tuyamana Charitakshukashari Shainabi Shayat Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari. Oh boy. You know? Okay. Heartwarming, warbling melodies adorn his flute, which sings of Cupid's fest to him, unending happiness it brings. The parrot pair his loving pastimes never tire to praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Shat kumba duchihadu bukula, cake chanda gaberada the chula, Dhamma yova nala sanvadanari ranjano, Jayati kundi bihari. His glistening garments steal a splendid glow by gold possessed. A perfect peacock plume bedecks his most exquisite crest. Vrindavan's radiant girls rejoice to see his loving ways. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Stasaki Kota Sugandhi Patira, Swanakanchi Padishobi Katira, Radhikona Tabayo Daravari Kundaro, Jayati Kundi Bihari. Most fragrant sandal paste anoints his limbs so slightly blue. A golden belt adorns his handsome waist. He's likened to an elephant bound by the ropes of Radha's winning ways. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. All right. Godat till the Kodalabana, Kedi Chantil the Champakamana, Andikanda the Gahesha Bisari Sumbavan, Jayat Kundi Bihari. His fulgent forehead glows with golden tilak he's applied. His playful pastime swing his jump of garland side to side. He meets the gorgeous gopis for the rendezvous in caves. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Vimramocha of the Guntan and Richa, Chip the Gopalanak and the Kuchi, Prema Matta Vishabana Kumari Nagaro, Jayat Kundi Bihari. Their work ignored, the coward's wives are nearly paralyzed when dancing glances strike them from the corners of his eyes. Ecstatic hero, setting love mad Radha's heart ablaze. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Ashtakam Kundi Bihari, Kridaya Patati Akilahari, Sakrayati Villa Sakpadabhagam, Tasapara, Kamalachandamagam. The pastime that the Lord enjoys in Braja's sylvan bowers, enhance this arctic beauty and pour forth pure nectar showers. Whoever reads these verses soon acquires saintly traits and serves his lustrous lotus feet with love that ne'er abates. And serves his lustrous lotus feet with love that ne'er abates. Haribol.
Wonderful. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So for the devotees who know this, it's great. For others, the Sanskrit verses are by our great acharyas, Rupa Goswami, and as you can see, the next one that Prabhu will do probably next week, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, etc. But the English translation in this poetic format is actually penned down by Dravid Prabhu himself, and this beautiful melody that we heard. So this is the shot in the arm that we need to go deep into Krishna consciousness. So we are always grateful to His Grace Dravid Prabhu for the wonderful classes that he gives, and to add that to the end, we always have these nectarian poems. So thank you so much, Prabhu, and we are waiting eagerly to have your virtual association next week, where we'll hear part 2 of Krishna Consciousness, the Supreme Dharma, as well as we will have some more nectarian verses at the end of
All right. Thank you all for
Krishna.
listening.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada
Prabhu,
ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
Good Prabhu, Hare Krishna.